So who actually wins when we are split into a dozen warring boxes? Think about that. That's the whole game. Divide and conquer does not care which team runs it. You have erased the individual because real people refuse to stay in their box. Why? Because a man is not a demographic. The day enough Americans remember that they are persons first, citizens of the United States first, the game's over. The most powerful political idea of the last 50 years is also the simplest. It says, you're not a person, you're a category. Tell me your race, your sex, your age, and I will tell you what you think and how you should vote. You do not get a say in that. The box you are checked in already spoke for you. Does that make sense to you? Of course not. And in 2024, all across this country, the boxes revolted. Now hold that thought. We're going to come back to that. Welcome, patriots, to this edition of Common Sense for America. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, coming to you from the beautiful Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's dive in. Last time we were together, we laid out the whole socialist communist playbook of 6 steps for taking the country apart from the inside. Today, we examine the first move in the playbook. Now let's get right into it. First, the case for it, fully, because it's real. A black man and a white man did not walk through the last century the same way, and pretending otherwise does not make it so. People on the left organize around group identity. A lot of them are responding to something that is true, that harm in this country often came to groups, by groups, on purpose, and that a blind man saying, "I don't see color," shrug, can be a polite way of ignoring a real disparity sitting right in front of you. I mean, we just cannot ignore that that was a reality. Representation matters. A fair person does not have to wave that away. They are not being entirely wrong. Now, the case against it, and it's just as serious, the moment you tell a human being that his skin color or her sex determines what he or she must believe, you have done something very ugly. You have erased the individual. You have said the content of a person's character takes a back seat to the color of their skin, which is the exact thing Dr. King told us we must avoid. Identity politics treats people as blocks, interchangeable, predictable, owned blocks of groups. It is division dressed up as justice, and division is division no matter how good the tailoring. And the folks who say, judge the individual, not the box, not the group, they're not entirely wrong, and I am with them. So which is it? Recognition or dressed up diversity? Stop thinking like a partisan, because the honest answer is neither. But here's the real problem. So if both sides hold a piece of the truth, why does this fight never end? And it's because identity politics is not really a philosophy. It is a strategy. And the strategy is the oldest one there is. Divide and conquer. Cut a single people into a dozen groups, teach each group to fear and even hate the others, and you no longer need to win a majority. You just need the biggest slice of the shattered pie, a plurality. And a fractured country hands it to you. That's the whole game. It does not love the marginalized. It needs them sorted. Thomas Sowell has been saying this for decades. A man is not the group he was born into. And here is the tell, the thing that proves it is a strategy and not a truth. It is a failing, because real people refuse to stay in their box. Look at the 2024 elections. Hispanic men who 4 years earlier had backed the Democrats by 34 points, swung all the way to a dead heat in a single cycle. And Trump roughly doubles his share of the black vote from 8% to 15%, and close to double among younger black men. Almost every group the strategists swore was locked in, that box got up and walked out of it, walked to the other side of the election, other side of the argument. Why? Because a man is not a demographic. He is a father, a worker, a believer, a guy worried about the price of groceries, and none of that fits on the form. So who actually wins when we are split into a dozen warring boxes? Think about that. Name the demographic underneath, because this is the part that nobody says. Divide and conquer does not care which team runs it. Republicans can play this game too, and when they do, it's just as corrosive. The dynamic wins by one trick, and that is making us hate the other half of the country. 2 in 3 of us feel exhausted when we think about politics. More than half feel angry, and yet, on the actual issues, most of us sits closer to the middle than the shouting would suggest. Fighting is not a side effect. The fighting is the product of this divisive strategy. A people convinced its real enemy is the neighbor across the street will never look up and ask who profits from the brawl. So here's the common sense. There is one identity that includes every single person in the country and ranks none of them above the other, and it's the identity of a United States citizen. Lead with that. Judge a candidate by what he will do, not by which box he flatters. And the next time anyone, left or right, tells you that you must think a certain way because of how you were born, treat it as the insult it is, and answer them as a free individual. That is not a fantasy. Millions of people did exactly that in the last election. Here's what you need to remember. The whole strategy depends on convincing you to forget that you're a person before you're a category. The day enough Americans remember that they are persons first, citizens of the United States first, the game's over. And the returns are already coming in. Please talk about this at your dinner table tonight and tell me in the comments which box of the world keeps trying to put you in. Next time we take on the single biggest dividing line in American politics, the single biggest identity politics there is, the one between men and women. And we do it with the data, honestly. Until then, may God bless you and yours, and God bless America.